Hey fellow duelists, it's RagingRaidRaptor here again. Here today with part 2 of the Fluffal deck guide. If you haven't seen part 1 already, be sure to check that out since that part of the video covers the staples of the deck that you need to run. So let's move on to part 2 where I discuss the tech cards. The first suggestion is King of the Swamps, probably the oldest card I am going to mention for tech cards. This card has two very good effects that work well in the context of this deck, with the first one being that you can discard this card from your hand to search a copy of Polymerization from your deck into your hand, and can be used as a substitute for any fusion monster that needs a specific monster as fusion material to summon it. The first effect is very good in the context of this deck, as you will need to get your fusion cards as quickly as you can to summon the fusion boss monsters in this deck, while the second effect can be very helpful if you don't have the correct monster like Edge and Chain in your hand or graveyard. The next bunch of suggestions were very prevalent in the Monarch deck back in 2016, and those cards are Brilliant Fusion and Gem Knight Seraphonite. The effect of Brilliant Fusion allows you to fusion summon a Gem Knight monster by using materials from your deck and sending them to the graveyard. This works incredibly well with the deck if you use Seraphonite, as you can send a copy of Fluffal Wings and a Gem Knight monster to make the deck faster by giving you an additional normal summon with the effect of Seraphonite, since Fluffals don't really have the ability to special summon from the hand, with the exception of Toy Vendor, Fluffal Penguin and Fluffal Sheep. Additionally, if you have another Fluffal monster in your graveyard and Toy Vendor on the field, you will be able to make a +3 play instantaneously. The next suggestion is Fluffal Sheep. This card has two very good effects, where it can special summon itself from the hand, and then can return a Fluffal monster on your field back into the hand, and then special summon an Edgit monster from either your graveyard or hand, and then special summon it. This is effective as it can let you bring back your copy of Fluffal Dog for another search on your next turn, but can also provide you with fusion materials that you might need if you only either have Polymerization or Fright for Factory in your hand. The next card I would suggest is Instant Fusion. Although this card is mainly used to give decks extra rank 4 spam in combination with Norden, this card does give you faster access to Fright for Saber Tiger, since you can summon Fright for Sheep with Instant Fusion. Also, you can use the effect of Fright for Saber Tiger to special summon that same Fright for Sheep you summoned with Instant Fusion, since Instant Fusion does count as a fusion summon. While we're on the topic of Instant Fusion, the next suggestion is Elder Entity Norden. If you don't know what Elder Entity Norden does, it allows you to special summon any level 4 or lower monster from your graveyard, which helps you summon some rank 4 monsters, which can be very good if you need to summon either Castel or Abyss Dweller in certain situations. Which leads me into my next suggestion, which is Bahamut Shark and Totally Awesome, since both Norden and Fluffal Penguin are water attribute monsters, which is required in order to summon Bahamut Shark. The effect of Bahamut Shark allows you to special summon any rank 3 or lower water attribute monster from your extra deck, which will allow you to special summon Totally Awesome. Which is really good when you consider that the second effect of Totally Awesome allows you to negate the effect of any card, then destroy it, and then set that same card on your side of the field without any cost, which can not only slow your opponent down, but can potentially be beneficial to you if you negated a card that helps your deck. Also, its first effect allows you to special summon any frog monster from your deck by detaching a material from it, but since Fluffals don't run frogs in the main deck, it will not be too prevalent within this archetype. Although you can play any rank 8 that you wish, as I mentioned earlier, I think the best one is number 38, Hope Heartbringer Dragon Titanic Galaxy. The reason I picked this rank 8 over the others is because it can negate the effect of any spell card during either player's turn, and then attach that spell card to this card as Xyz material, which is excellent when you consider that a lot of decks need their spell cards in order to function. The second effect of this card allows you to detach an Xyz material from it when your opponent attacks another monster on your side, and then have this card become the attacking target, which can come in handy if your opponent summons a monster with more attack points than Totally Awesome, for example, and you still want it to be on your side of the field. Its last effect, although unlikely that you'll ever use it, allows you to add the attack points of an XZ monster that was destroyed on your side of the field, and then add them to another XZ monster you control, including itself. The next set of suggestions are both Fluffal Cat and Fluffal Rabbit. I've decided to put these cards together as both of them have similar effects with only one minor variation, with Fluffal Rabbit being able to add a Fluffal monster back from your graveyard and into your hand, while Fluffal Cat allows you to add a copy of Polymerization from your graveyard into your hand when they are used as fusion material. These effects can be very good if you need to recover any Fluffal or Polymerization card into your hand to extend your combos, but they can be dead cards if you're trying to get your deck running and do not have any resources in your graveyard. Also, like Fluffal Penguin, you can also chain these cards with the effect of Frightfur Tiger or Frightfur Sabertooth Tiger in order to get rid of problematic cards like Crystal Wing Synchro Dragon, or forcing the timing of certain cards. The next suggestion is Tour Guide from the Underworld. Although mainly used in Burning Abyss, this card also works well in Fluffals, as you can special summon any level 3 Fiend monster from either your deck or hand. This is very good as this effect will give you access to Edge Imp Sabers or Saw, and also gives the ability to summon rank 3s like Levia the Sea Dragon or Phantom Knights of Breaksword. These cards can potentially extend your combos as Levia allows you to special summon a banished rank 4 or lower monster, and Breaksword allows you to destroy a card you control and a card your opponent controls, which works very well in combination with Toy Vendor. The next suggestion is Fusion Recovery, as it allows you to add a copy of Polymerization or any fusion material monster from your graveyard to your hand, which, like Fluffal Cat and Fluffal Rabbit, can give you more resources to help extend your combos or set up plays for your next turn. However, you do need to be careful when using this card, as if you use a fusion summon material and use it as an XZ summon by special summoning it with Norden, it will no longer count as fusion material afterwards, which can put you in difficult situations if you really needed that monster to carry on your plays. The next suggestion is Fusion Substitute. This card allows you to fusion summon using monsters you control as fusion material, as well as being able to banish this card in order to return a fusion monster in your graveyard back to your extra deck and then draw another card, which can help you extend your combos and give you more draw power. However, the downsides of this card are that you cannot use monsters in your hand as fusion material, since controlling a monster means having to have it on the field, and the fact that it is always treated as a polymerization card, which does make this card searchable with the effects of Frightfur Patchwork, but will mean that you can only run a 2-to-1 ratio of this card in polymerization. Speaking of polymerization cards, the next suggestion is Transcendental Polymerization. This card allows you to fusion summon using 2 monsters you control as fusion material at the cost of 2,000 life points. Although this does not seem too impressive, it is what Mega Capital G refers to as Spell Speed 4, meaning that your opponent cannot respond to this card effect. Also, you can banish this card from the graveyard and then special summon those fusion material monsters from your graveyard where their stats are set to 0 with their effects negated, which can provide you with extra monsters for fusion summoning and XZ summoning. However, the main issue aside from having to control the monsters on the field to fusion summon is that you are only allowed to use 2 monsters for the fusion summon, which can be limiting if you want to use more monsters for the fusion summon of Frightfur Tiger or Dog. A more versatile alternative would be Dark Fusion. This card almost works exactly the same as polymerization for the fusion summon of themed type fusion monsters, which happens to be what the Frightfur fusion monsters happen to be. However, what makes this card different to polymerization is that it can make fusion summoned monsters non-targetable from spell, trap or card effects for that turn, which would be fantastic if cards like Fiendish Chain or Compulsion Evacuation Device were still played. However, this card is definitely worth looking into if trap cards become relevant again. Although these are not Fluffal cards, they do make access to fusion summoning much more consistent, and that is Predaplant, Darling Cobra, and Orphe Scorpio. At least I think that's how you pronounce it. The way these cards interact with each other is that you can use the effect of Scorpio to discard a monster card in order to summon a copy of Cobra from your deck, meaning that you will be able to use the effect of Cobra to search a copy of Polymerization or any fusion card from your extra deck, as long as it is special summoned with the effect of a Predaplant monster, meaning that you can search all the fusion cards that I've already mentioned, as well as having access to any rank 3 monster. However, the downside to these cards is that you have to have a monster card in your hand in order to use the effect of Scorpio, which you may not always have access to. And if you draw both these cards in your opening hand, they will most likely be dead, since Scorpio is only able to special summon other Predaplant monsters from the deck. Also, it can't search the fusion wave motion. Speaking of Predaplant monsters, the next suggestion is Predaplant I'm just going to call it Dragon Stapler for simplicity's sake. This card is not only capable of effect negation, but can potentially disrupt your opponent's plays, since it can target one of your opponent's monsters and put a predator counter on it. This will prevent your opponent from using the effects of monsters that have a predator counter while this monster is on the field, as well as lowering the level of a level 2 or higher monster down to 1, which can be problematic for decks that rely on synchro summoning or exceed summoning of a certain level or rank. However, this card can be awkward to summon as you need a fusion monster and a dark attribute monster, which you may not always have access to, since all the Fluffal monsters are Earth attribute, while only the Edgimp monsters are actually Dark. The next suggestion is Masked Hero Darklaw. If you don't know what this card does, it's basically a macrocosmos that only applies to your opponent's side of the field, which is amazing since a ton of decks use their graveyard as a secondary resource. But in order to summon it, you will need a copy of Mask Change 2, or run an engine to summon it quickly, and then have a dark monster that has a level on the field, which can either be Frightful Fusions or Edgimp monsters. However, this can be a problem since all the Fluffal monsters are Earth attribute, meaning that you may not be able to summon Darklaw at times. The next suggestion is Edgimp Tomahawk. This effect is basically Foolish Burial for Edgimp monsters, as it can send any Edgimp monster from your deck to the graveyard, and then its name will change to the name of that monster you just sent, which can be very helpful if you want that monster in the graveyard for Frightful Fusion, deck thinning or making fusion summoning a bit easier. Its second effect, however, is not very good, as you need to send an Edgimp card from your hand to the graveyard to inflict 500 points of damage to your opponent. The final suggestions are Glow Up Bulb and Naturia Beast. These cards are very good against decks that rely on spell cards in order to function, as Naturia Beast can negate any spell card multiple times in a turn by sending the top 2 cards from your deck to the graveyard, which not only makes it difficult for spell heavy decks to play around, but can also help advance your game state if you mill copies of Fluffal Wings or Toy Bender. However, to summon this card you will need both an Earth Tuner and non-tuner monster to summon it, which can be a problem if you only have Edgimp monsters on your field and not the Fluffal monsters. Well, that is the end of part 2 of my Fluffal deck guide. If you feel like I've missed out some interesting tech cards that work in this deck, let me know in the comment section below. And while you're here, why not check out my RaidRaptor deck guide that I did previously. I've been RagingRaidRaptor, and I'll see you all again next time.